I can't assume that that's the same for everybody, but it's good to see you all. Hi, Alan. It's been a while. No, we don't need to start with the video. Oh, we're just gonna start. It's nice to see you. Yeah, great. I see some other familiar names. Troy, did you manage to get on your regular internet? It doesn't look like you're on your phone anymore.
Well, so far it's working on my hotspot, so I have no idea if it'll allow me to share or not. It was too big of an email to file or
Yeah,
filed email.
I think we're fine. We're good. So it's a good turnout today. So shall we get started? I think so. Yes. All right. Well, welcome everyone. I really appreciate your interest in the Doctor of Design program and taking a little bit of time out of your day to learn a little bit more. We've got on the call with us from our side, Barry Weiland, who is a professor in our architecture program, trained as an industrial designer, and is our graduate program director and also teaches into the Doctor of Design program. It's really active in that. We have Troy Rhodes, who is in the throes of writing the final chapters of his dissertation. He's going to be graduating in June and has graciously taken a few minutes today to be able to talk to you about his experience. Troy is a registered architect with his own firm in Oklahoma. You will probably have at least emailed with Jennifer Taylor, who is one of our program directors for the school, and Janelle Ward, who is there under our "You Can Change the World" banner, supports Jennifer in our recruitment and admissions process. And then everybody else on the call are potential applicants and students along with you. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes and chat a little bit about what the Doctor of Design program is and what it isn't. And then I'm going to ask Troy to give his perspective on things, and then we can go through some of the nuts and bolts about how the program works and details, and then answer any questions that you might have. So the rationale for the program emerged from the perspective that Barry and I had as teachers at the University of Calgary, where we would see all of these bright, bushy-tailed, venturesome, enthusiastic students graduate, and then we would see them 10 or 15 years later at various academic conferences, and there was a kind of these things that you probably all experience, a sort of frustration, a little bit of disillusionment. All of this sort of desire to change the world is still there, but the realities of practice, and in whatever form that is, landscape architecture, planning, or we're starting to see other people come to us that are in related disciplines, really kind of wears it down. And part of that is because I think we work within the strictures of a well, I'm going to say it, in many cases, an outdated consulting process or an outdated professional process of work that doesn't allow us really to exercise our capabilities to the best of our advantages. We're waiting for clients, we're waiting for government approval, if we're in the public sector, we're always waiting for someone else to come along and let us or allow us or hire us to do something. And to me, that's not the way the world works in other disciplines. If you have a great idea, you go out and you develop it, and you gather support, whatever that means, and then you start to implement it. And so my expertise is in architectural entrepreneurship and developing new ways of thinking about the world that we live in and the way in which we practice. We wanted to create a program that would enable established practitioners, and you have been in the trenches long enough to develop, first of all, an expertise in your particular area of practice, whatever that is, plus a uh, some kind of idea, either a really big frustration about something that you would like to change in the physical world or the way in which you practice or whatever that is, or an idea about what that might be. But in the realities of practice, there just isn't the time to take and to the sort of physical space or the emotional mental space to be able to do that, to develop that into an idea. And so it just sits there as, gee, I wish somebody would do this. Gee, I wish I could do this. Gee, if I only had this, I could do this. I could do my job better. I could have more of an impact. I could achieve the goals that I had when I was a fresh-faced graduate from my academic training. And so we set up the DDes as basically a framework to help you to do that. You are the experts in your field, and whatever interests you have and what part of the world, of your world, that you want to try to change, you're the ones that are the experts. You're not coming to a program like this to learn anything more. What we give you is a methodology. We give you a collegial process that's based on a studio environment where you workshop together your project alongside your peers in the class to develop this idea, to rigorously test it through a design science research methodology with experts from around the world, and to have the kind of that process lead to the creation of a design project, which is usually an innovation of ways, a framework, a toolkit, a practice model, whatever that is that will enable you to unlock the problem that you've seen, that you've identified, and approach it in a different way. And to then document that in an exhibition and a final publication that then you can take and go out into the world and implement. The point of our degree is that we want it to be relevant, impactful, useful, for you in each of your worlds. We want you to step out of the door, while you're still in while you're still in the program, to start implementing these ideas. But certainly when you finish, you've got something that is shovel ready, so to speak, to go out. And we've started the program in 2020. We've got several years of alumni under about two groups of alumni, number of people in the program, and the people that have graduated have actually started to implement this, and the people that are about to graduate, and Troy is one of them, is developing a practice model of how to start to implement that. So this is not an academic exercise per se. It's not about going back to school and learning something. It's not a PhD where you're doing research into something, where you're studying something. This is a creative act of disrupting the status quo of the way in which your world works through a very carefully conceived and carefully executed program of innovation, I think, at its best. Barry, do you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, John, and good morning, everyone. So glad that you could join us. I'm also seeing a few familiar faces, and good to connect again. I think one of the things it's really important is understanding that it's something that is emanating the research effort or the project effort or the innovation effort is targeting something that emanates out of your practice, that it's really grounded in what you're doing, and it's almost a way of looking at your practice and saying, you know what, I could do this part a little differently, or if I model this particular other aspect of my practice a little bit differently, that could have greater impacts. And so that idea of pivoting off of your practice and making something that may be somewhat implicit in the background, making that explicit, making it a focus, and making it something that you could then leverage towards impact in your practice, the built environment, within the profession. Sometimes we have students that are having, I think, a really broad range of impacts in a variety of different areas, right from the kinds of clients they may be beginning to target to instituting new ways and processes that, for instance, one of Troy's, the student I'm supervising, one of Troy's cohort, one of his peers, Tarida Al-Zubaidi, she's developed a whole new process for enhancing accessibility within the built environment. She's an accessibility specialist and is interested in how could we be more proactive about this as opposed to responsive. And so she's developed a whole kind of program where people can leverage that. So it's looking for those opportunities within your practice that you can then explicitly focus on and shape and mold towards some kind of impact.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Barry. Yeah, so it's a program. We modeled it on design education where you are workshopping your idea, you're developing your idea in a kind of studio setting. In the first year of the program, we meet as a cohort, as a group, which is between 7 to 12 people in a given year. We meet for 2 hours a week on Zoom, and everybody presents their work. We work through it all, in a process. Get feedback from the instructors, and you develop that, and then you continue. You meet one other time outside of that class period with your cohort to sort of work on whatever task that you've got. It's an executive style of program. It takes 3 years. You can take longer if you want, but we have set up a kind of pretty rigorous framework of how to go through the project and to develop it from beginning to end within that three-year period. And I think maybe I'll pass it over to Troy to speak a little bit about your sort of Troy's experience and where he started, where he's been. And Troy, off to you.
Thank you. Yes. So I've been in and out, even as we've been here. I'm in a little bit of a remote area in Arizona right now with my family, and so I will do the best I can. And if I drop out, I'll just try to pick back up. Do you want me to go ahead and try to share the screen and maybe go through a little bit? I mean, I'll be glad to do it. It's just
do whatever you like, Troy.
all right. Well, I'll try this and just kind of see if it lags too much. Then I'll just cut this out and just talk. Everybody see kind of the blue and white screen? Is it going through right now?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
good. So for me, starting out, it was really just a reflection. You kind of spend your first semester or term just kind of doing a lot of self-reflection. So this was a diagram created just about my practice and the history of who I am and why I'm doing this, and just kind of it really is intended to help understand the background about why are you doing what you're doing and why is this program potentially going to be successful for you. We do in our practice, we have a small practice, about 10 people in Oklahoma City, and we do a number of campus planning projects. This was, everything I've done on campus planning was related to traditional, master planning, traditional campus planning. And the university had come to me, that one of the universities I work with, and wanted to understand how master planning might, what they could do to their campus to help boost enrollment. And, it wasn't something that I'd ever been asked or really talked about. So I wasn't really that comfortable with, trying to help them with their enrollment based on kind of the physical environment. And that's really what spurred me into the program. We did the master planning, but then jumping into the program, it's like the Doctor of Design is, what can I do? Is there something that I, as an architect and planner, can think about and do for campuses to help them truly with their enrollment? I wasn't confident that I could do that, and so this program, for me at least, has helped drive that confidence. But it's really, for me, in this program, it was about trying to understand the more human-centered design aspects of campus planning, so kind of those intangible elements. And so really thinking about what a student experiences on their campuses. We've all been to college, and in our past, for me, it was, 25, 30 years ago. And so wanted to just truly have a better understanding of what those experiences are for students and what could potentially drive them. So I landed on kind of these constructs, these ideas, these concepts about what we could do within the physical environment to drive a sense of purpose. There's 5 of them: a sense of belonging. I'll just span through these real quickly: a sense of community, a sense of connectedness, and a sense of distinction. Those 5 constructs were ideas that I felt like if you could figure out ways to design physical elements on a campus that would hit those, as many of these as possible. For me, 1 is great, but if you could do 2, 3, even 5 of these constructs with a single design element, could you possibly then attract students? Could you help universities with retention? And so then it's a matter of how do you then implement this idea? How do you create this idea? So the idea of experience design master planning, which is
Ray, I think your
kind of
your slides might be stuck. What we're seeing is experience.
Okay.
I think that was one of. So I think it's not. Is it proceeding, or did you do all of that with one slide?
No, I'll just see if I can reshare. Does it say XDMP now at the top?
Still coming up. Yeah, there it is. There you go.
Okay. Try. So as a tool, so you have this idea and trying to understand, can you now begin to work with universities to understand how to make this tool apply? I've created a toolkit called Experience Design Master Planning. I'll try to show you a few of the elements for it. For me, it was a human-centered approach to campus planning that intentionally maps design elements connected to experiences, empowering universities to gain a competitive edge for recruitment and retention. So this was kind of my elevator pitch, if you will, to understand, what it would take to drive enrollment potentially. So the toolkit for me, and again, everybody has their own practice, their own ideas, and everything is very personalized to what you want to do and what you're trying to impact. But for me, this university planning, if you're working with university administrators who aren't used to thinking this way, I felt like I needed a toolkit. So these are inspiration cards. It's a deck of each of 5 different decks actually for each of the constructs. Each card, there's 40 or 50 of them in each deck, and they have ideas. And the intent is to talk through ideas that you can then create experiences around, physical elements that you can then connect those experiences from place to place on a university. So the toolkit is the creative project for me. And so these markers that we've created, it's almost a gamification, if you will, of planning. We do interactive planning with our architectural clients all the time, but it's not about designing experiences. In those cases, it's just about designing buildings or spaces or sites. But these are experience markers that I've created to help understand locations and try to document, the idea of stacking or building multiple constructs, 2, 3, 4, 5 different constructs at a time. And then this is just a collage of images, if you can see it, of some of the process that I went through for setting up these boards. They work at different scales. And then I went through actually a testing process with one of the universities I work with to try to understand, the pros and cons and how it works, and maybe some of the pitfalls that I might be getting into, and how I can avoid those. One of the things that for me was the most crucial element, it's a key, not just for me, it's really part of the program, is the idea of key informants. So these are the professionals that you will be talking with throughout. Really, it's in a couple of different times initially, and then once at the end, where you go to them with your idea, you talk to them about what their feedback is, all from their perspective. This is just an analysis I did of some of the key informants, the ideas that they created and or that they helped me with in terms of understanding their feedback based on what they thought could be improved upon, or maybe some barriers that they might see. One of the things that I went through when I talked with each of them, I had 13 actually key informants, was trying to understand after they see they know the idea, they see the solution, what barriers might they think that I might face as I'm introducing this concept with universities. And then, out of the 13, these are just a handful, but they're very willing to share suggestions because I had a variety of key informants, some from institutions and academia, but many others from different industries and professions that I wanted to hear their perspective and their feedback on the idea to try to make it even better. As far as where I'm at in the program, this is kind of the timeline. John mentioned, the 3 years. And so we all try to set up our own personalized timeline about, what this looks like in the 3-year period. And I'm over there kind of on the far right in that with about 3 months to go in the throes of writing the dissertation and going through the editing process. So I think that's actually, yep, that's it. So I'll just say that for me, I mean, it's been really a life-changing experience for me. I mean, our practice has been thriving now for over 20 years, but this to me opens up a whole new realm of possibilities for how we can service our university clients. And I hope my intent is that it's not just relegated to just universities, that I can then expand it into other potential client bases as well.
Great. Thank you, Troy. It's so nice to see that, we've been working through the big dissertation document. It's so nice to see it distilled down into its essence. And
It's hard. It's hard to take 3 years and condense it down to about 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
well, and so I think that was perfect. I wish, I couldn't have asked for a kind of better description of a project, because it really talks about the two primary components that are distinctive for the Doctor of Design. The first is that you're making something. We're all designers. Even if we're a planner in a public realm, we're still designing policies. We're shaping the future. We're changing the way in which the world is going to work. And a PhD, a kind of classic PhD, research PhD, isn't about making anything. It's about studying something. And that's not really what we do. It's not what we're good at, and it's not what really our practices are about. We want to help you to create a new way to practice, a new tool, a new strategy, something that you can implement either within your existing practice, or maybe it spawns a new practice, a new kind of role, which is actually happening more often than not. So that first piece is to make something, and we all know how to make something. And we're going to do that. And you don't actually need a Doctor of Design program to do that. You could just go and Troy could have just gone and made all of that on his own. It would be extremely difficult to find the time, unless you're committed to an academic program, to do that, but you could do it. The piece that makes it the doctoral program, why it's in a university, why it is the generation of new knowledge, is what Troy talked about with the key informants. It's a design science research methodology that we're using, which is it comes out of computer science, and it is a valid research methodology for creative disciplines. Where, if you're a social scientist, you might do a survey of, divorced single parent men, right? To find out something about all of that. That kind of, or if you're a chemist, you might do an experiment on nuclear fusion or whatever it is, right? Those things aren't really relevant to our kind of world. We make something, and then we often don't have an opportunity to validate it, to test it, or even to share it. If you remember back in school, you used to be able to talk to your peers and talk to all sorts of people in the world and do all kinds of research. When you're in practice, it's difficult sometimes to do that. There's competition, there's time pressures, there's sort of professional status, all of that. When you put yourself in an academic situation, you suddenly have a whole world of people. You can call up just about anybody in the world, no matter who they are, as an expert in your field, and say, look, my name's John. I'm a doctoral student. I'm studying this. Can I talk to you? And I would say, Troy, 9 times out of 10, or maybe 8 times out of 10, say, yeah, sure, of course. I'd love to do that. And so this notion of the of the testing, the evaluation, the research piece is in 2 stages. As part of this process, you identify who would be the key informants that you value that could provide value add to your project. And there's 2 sections, as Troy said. One is the sort of tactical group, the content experts in the field. So for Troy, it was, the sort of university presidents, the registrars, the admission people, other people doing master planning, all of that, right? That kind of the people that would actually benefit from the tool or that would be engaged in the tool. And you really want their feedback before you go out and start offering this to somebody, right? The other piece are the strategic key informants. And those are people outside of the discipline who have done something similar to this. And so Troy started to talk to the experienced designers at Disney and to a whole group of people that were in experience design, had no understanding about university planning at all, but they had done this. They were in it. There was neuroscientists and all kinds of people that were strategic advisors. In the Doctor of Design program, you meet with those people twice. The first is at the beginning of the project, after you've gone through the first year of kind of developing the research proposal and what it is you're going to do, where you go out to them and you ask them in an hour-long interview to tell you what success would look like. So in Troy's example, I go out and say, I've got this idea about experience design and master planning. What would be valuable for this tool to be able to do for you? And you get a whole bunch of feedback, and then those basically become a curated performance characteristics of what your design project could be. That's so valuable, right? We don't get that in practice. We have a client that tells us what we want. We have an approving authority for an architectural example who tells us what you can and can't do, but you're not getting that more holistic feedback. It's all the other is very tactical. You then take that away, and for about a year, you work on your creative project, the development of that tool, and you get that done. You then go back, as Troy said, you go back to that same group and said, this is what I've done. I'd like you to evaluate it. And they will tell you the things they like, the things they don't like, the things that they think could be strengthened, the things that should be abandoned, the opportunities, the people that you might want to talk to. That is that critical evaluation. That's the research piece, where then you bring that back, and in the last chapter of your dissertation, you reflect on that. Say, well, and Troy did a masterful job of diagramming out all of those responses and thinking about it. You saw just a couple of pieces of that. That is, I think, the real value add for this Doctor of Design project, is that you can take this idea that you've got that is really probably out there and develop it in a safe space in a collegial, studio-based environment with critics like Barry and myself and peers, the 7 to 10 other people that are in the same journey as you, and then test it in the world like that with these experts, and come out at the end with something that is ready to be applied. And Troy, I think you're ready to start. You're working on a website. You're working on how to start to implement this, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's part of what I'm trying to do is this is not an academic process. I mean, it is, but my ultimate goal is to try to create an additional service or an umbrella service, or even potentially a completely separate entity that does this type of planning. And so, yes, the implementation of that is a key element to what I'm doing, and building that website and trying to get trademarks and just that whole process right now is what I'm in. And of course, wrapping up the dissertation and preparing for defense. So a lot going on right now for me.
Right. And then just to conclude this piece, I think that, so at the end of this, what do you get out of it? Well, you've developed an idea that is intimately and profoundly linked to what you do. Like I think almost every student that is part of our program says, well, it's hard for me to distinguish when I'm working on my Doctor of Design and when I'm working in my practice because they're one and the same thing. The last piece is probably, Troy, a little different when you're actually sitting there writing your document. That's not so much fun. That last 3 or 4 months isn't as much fun, but it's really valuable, nevertheless. But you're constantly working and thinking and testing all of this in an intimate way. So you have this, you had it tested, and then you've had to write about it, and you get feedback, critical feedback during our symposia and the rest on what that is. So it's a very crisp, complete way of talking about that. And then you have a credential, and credentials in this world do mean something. And Troy is able to say, I have a doctoral degree in experience design. That means something. That will probably get you in the door. You then need to make the pitch and you need to get the job, but it gives you something that is a value add. And I think you can see even just from those few slides that Troy shared, along with the document in an exhibition, there's a lot of authority that comes from walking in the door and saying, this is what I'm proposing. This is what I do. This is what my company does. This is what me as a consultant does. And that works in the public realm, with public sector professionals just as much as it does in the private realm. It also works in the educational space. It works. We have an entrepreneur this year, a residential entrepreneur, who is in the first year of the program right now. We have an affordability housing crisis in Canada, as we do in most of North America, and he is implementing a plan for missing middle housing through the Doctor of Design program that we're working, that is being implemented right now, and it's starting to have an impact. So I think that's probably, and Troy, you talked a little bit about the structure of the degree. Maybe I'll spend 3 or 4 minutes on that, just to, and then we'll open it up for questions and any closing comments. So I'm just going to I'll go to this slide. So I think that's probably this is a version of what of Troy's. It's nice to see that it's still there and it actually works. Maybe I'll go back to this. So this is the sort of roadmap for the program. You start out and you have a kind of, this is my problem, this is my concern, this is my background, this is what I can't stand, and I want to change, how I want to change the world. And you start out by, in an expansive way, in the first term of the program, looking at all of that and thinking about it, defining the problem space, precedent reviews, context reviews, diagramming of the problem space. What really is the problem that you're trying to solve? You then start to hone down, to develop that, to converge and focus that into a design brief, a research proposal, which says, this is what I'm going to do. I can speak articulately about what the program is, what the innovation is I'm going to create, who my key informants are, and how I'm going, and what is the scope of the work that I'm going to do so that I can finish it in the time frame that I have. You then go and design the creative project. You go through and develop all of that, and you spend about 9 months on that piece, and then at the end you start to reflect on it. You do the key informant interviews, the final set of key informant interviews, and then you do what Troy's doing right now, which is to write on it, write about that. So when we see it kind of laid out across the 3 years, you spend the first year doing that first piece. You then spend the majority of the time working on the key informant interview, first the creative project, the second key informant interview in that sort of second piece, and then finally there's that last section where you're doing the reflection and the writing and consolidating everything together. You'll see these blue dots and yellow dots. We have twice a year, we have a symposium where all the people in the program get together and they present their work to each other and to mentors and supervisors and guests. We bring in a bunch of people, and it's your opportunity to share and get and workshop and feedback. So think of them as as interim studio reviews, if you think back to your student days. The fall symposium is online, and the winter symposium is hybrid, or summer, I guess it happens in June, is hybrid. We really encourage people to come to Calgary. It's a 3-day conference, Saturday and part of Sunday, and everybody gets together. We go out for dinner, we have breakfasts, lunches, and everybody just talks about their projects. And what's great is everybody in the cohort is an experienced professional and has something to say about, or an informed opinion about almost everything that's going on in the program. And that, I think, is the most useful component of that. And so you do that 6 times over the course of your degree. And we start with the people that are the most senior. So in June, Troy and his cohort will start with their defenses, and they will publicly defend their thesis. And then the next day we'll do people in the second year, and then in the third day we'll do people in their first year who are just going through their candidacy. So we think what we've developed and are continuing to develop is a really finely tuned process that we can take, that you can use to develop something of real value. Barry, did you have anything that you wanted to add? And then we open up for questions.
Yeah, I think, you made a really good point early on, like you could do this within your practice, but one of the things that's really important about the DDes is our ability to bring together a cohort and also an ecology of expertise that really comes out during those 2 symposia a year. So you're in this environment where there's a lot of touch points for feedback and discussion on your ideas. And that, to me, is one of the really great things about the program is that you're not alone in it. You are putting forth a bunch of different ideas, and there's all these different points of feedback and commentary, and it really, really helps students to tune their projects, both in the definition phase and also in that design phase as they get further along. And so it's a little bit like studio, but those symposia are like studio on steroids, right? Like they really provide a kind of exciting environment for the discussion, the feedback, and the learning points. And our panelists, we invite people from all over. They look forward to participating in our symposia. The guests that we invite in to provide commentary, because I think they get something that brings a little bit of a charge back to their daily practice. So it's really it's that sort of cohesive, highly curated sense of progression through the program, but also the community that we can collect around that effort that I think really helps to advance the work and to get some really great results.
Yeah, and I just it isn't required that you attend. We have some people from East Africa that are not able to attend regularly. We've had people from the Middle East but we try to encourage as much as possible to attend. And you're all welcome to watch the proceedings in June. We do have everything is hybrid, and so if you're interested, just let us know and we can provide that. Troy, did you want to have anything to say about the sort of cohort-based world and the symposia?
Sure. We have a cohort of 5 in our group right now, and we're all kind of going through this journey together, and so we understand the challenges that each of us are facing. And one of the things that we decided early on, and it was really a cue that we got from a previous, I guess really it's probably the first cohort that went through this. They suggested that we get together regularly as a cohort. So the first year, you're meeting as I think it's every other. Is it every 2 weeks still?
No, every week.
Is it every week? Yeah, sorry, it's been a little while. Every week, yes. Those Tuesdays come fast. So you meet as a group with John and Barry and others. And then once you get past the candidate exam, you're not on your own because you've always got the support of the people within the program. But you want to try to still stay connected with the cohort. So we decided as a cohort that we were going to meet every 2 weeks on our own just to talk. And so we do that through Zoom, and we just kind of check in on progress with each other. If we're having challenges, we can talk to each other about it. And it's really been great for a couple of reasons. It really does enhance the community that we have with each other and with the program. But it also, as we all probably experience in our lives, it kind of sets a little bit of a timeline. Every 2 weeks, there's something that we need to be able to say, okay, here's what I've done over the last 2 weeks, and here's what I'm getting ready to do. And it's just a little bit of a check. When we check in, we want to make sure that that you're holding up your end of the deal. In other words, just wanting to try to show progress to yourself and to your cohort members, and again, just trying to think through what challenges that we're facing and how we might be able to overcome those and help those around us.
Any thoughts about the symposium?
The symposiums for me, yes, they're like studios, but I think the studio on steroids is probably a good description because they kind of set this timeline to say, okay, at this moment in time, you've got to have prepared enough information to be able to present what you're working on, and to get the feedback. I've gone to both the initial candidacy exam in Calgary, and then again the follow-up in the second year in June. I've been to both of those in person, and then the others through Zoom. And just the idea of being able to meet face to face with people and interact with people. Yes, the presentations that you sit through and you watch everybody's progress, you learn from those in front of you and you see the ones coming up behind you. But also it's those coffee breaks in between where you can just kind of chat with people and get to know people sometimes on a little more personal level than you can through meetings and presentations. But to me, they've been a fantastic way to really get to know the people that are trying to support you in this process. And so they are stressful. There's no doubt because you're trying to prepare your work and to be ready for that. But usually the stress creates good work. And so I think they've been instrumental for me, at least.
Great, thank you. So we've got 15 minutes left. Maybe we take some time and answer any questions that you might have, and then I can just conclude with a couple of sort of technical things around applications and stuff like that. So any questions that anybody might have? Feel free to jump in.
I think my biggest question is, I'm probably a fish out of water. I'm an DDes grad from back in the day. I was one of Dixon's students. And so I'm in waste and recycling. I'm in environmental policy. That's what I do. It's what I've spent 20 years doing. What I did my DDes thesis on, I have spent my career working on. And so there's some real practical implementation issues in my world. But when every time I go on the website, because there's one of your recent students who lives not far from me, and he keeps telling me I need to check out this program because this might be the place for me to solve one of those, solve my big problem. But when I go onto the website, I just see landscape architect, like the leaders there don't necessarily, like no one pops out as, hey, I want to work in the policy space. I would be a policy planner, as opposed to what Troy does, which is design architecture or landscape planning. So I'm just wondering, do you have profs that are in that would be outside of that?
Yes. So I'll say two things. First of all, we have a number of planners, policy planners that are working with this. One, we have he is the the head planner for, I believe it's the head planner for Parks Canada, or was former, and now is working in Northern Ontario, and is frustrated at the level, the way in which community planning is being done in these northern communities. And he's in first year, and his tentative title is From Plan to Place, and how to think about a community planning as placemaking, as a common and in a flexible way. We have one of the lead planners at the City of Calgary in charge of industrial zoning, and her frustration is that people aren't paying attention to industrial land anymore. Politicians don't understand the need for it. The public think that it's just smelly and dirty and shouldn't be there. And so she's developing, first of all, it's kind of twofold. The first is her toolkit, is to develop a dynamic zoning model where it actually, you're not taught, you might be zoning what the land use is right now, but it's actually with an idea of what is it going to become. And her idea is actually industrial land is the gestation of city building. It's where city building starts, and we're seeing it now, in Calgary with Manchester and sort of the rise of all of that. And that if you started to rebrand the way industrial land is, it's not just where things get, smelly things get built and stuff like that. It's actually the future place where all of this other stuff is, cities are going to happen, that it reframes that. And there's probably, I'd say, Barry, 5 or 6 others. So there's a number of people. Viren, who's a student of Barry's, is in Central BC and looking at well, maybe talk about it really quickly, Barry.
Yeah, he wanted to understand how you could support local agency with initiatives that target sustainability. And so he's created a kind of enabling website that uses Instagram to hook people into it. But then once you get to the website, he tells us sort of a full story about initiatives all around the world. Then he's got developed a sort of resource page that if you wanted to mimic something like that, you can see how it was done in other areas and then patch into the network. And he's looking at things like gamification and things like that, to how to enhance and spark that kind of local agency. And we've got a number of people that are in this space, and I think the thing is it's not necessarily about a design outcome per se. It's a design thinking applied to the issues that are really, really salient to you, and then how can you pivot off of that to really kind of formalize and structure a response that is more incisive at getting at the problem that you're targeting.
Right. So how would you recommend folks to have a conversation that would help them find someone that they might be able to work under?
Two things. So the first thing to do, and this is for everybody, is set up an appointment with me, and we'll have a chat about basically this kind of chat. And talk about it, and we can decide, is it a doctoral program or is it a PhD, and what are the differences, and tease it out and kind of workshop what that might be. And it's really important for everybody that's interested in the program to do that, because I don't want you to waste a lot of time writing a research proposal that is kind of not what we're looking for. We have to call it a research proposal because we're in a doctoral program at a university and things are slow to change, but it's not that. It's this is what I'm upset about. This is what I think how I want to change the world, or what I'm frustrated about. This is who I am, and this is what I'm interested in. That's what really we're looking for. So work with me. I just wanted to go back to one other piece though. When you said about who am I going to work with, every one of you and every one of our students is already an expert in what they're doing, and you can supplement and get more knowledge from that through your key informants. Your supervisor is there not as a content expert, but as a coach, as a mentor to help you through this process. There's a Doctor of Design process that starts on day 1 and that ends on your dissertation. And it's really clear. If you follow this process, it doesn't matter what the project is. We follow this process, you get to the end of that. And so your supervisor's in charge of that. and that's what your committee is. And then you augment that with your personal networks plus your key informants.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it doesn't, we don't have to have the world's leading expert in recycling in order for you to do a doc. You would if you didn't know anything about recycling and you were doing a PhD in that, then you'd absolutely need to find that. But a doctor of design is different. So I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah, and to participate in those as
Any
well.
other comments or questions?
I think one thing too is going back to that sort of double diamond diagram. You know, that first term, like you should have an idea of what is the professional itch that you're keen to scratch. But in that first term, the course and the weekly meetings is an interrogation of your practice and your project ambition. And it's very much a kind of coaching environment to develop the idea and the focus, and in particular, how to frame it, right? Like how to kind of distill the information down and frame it so that you can then follow through with that creative project.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first year is about walking in the door with, I've got this burning desire to do this. I'm not sure what it is, but I really need to do something about this. When we help you frame that into a project and a doable project, you then spend year 2 and a part of year 3 doing it and evaluating it, and then you spend the last 6 months writing about it, and then you come out with that. So I'm just going to, I see we've got 6 minutes left, and if you have specific questions, feel free to, call me, and we can each, through Jen, set up a half-hour call and kind of workshop. Even if you've got it, well, I'm not sure, whatever, just come in and chat. I'm more than happy to do that. I'm going to just share my screen once more and just run through some of the logistics piece. So this is just an overview of all the people that are in the program at the moment. Oops. We've got, as you can see, a wide range of people from a wide range of places in the world and across Canada. But it just in terms of the logistics. So it is an executive style program, and the tuition is paid in 3 installments. In terms of the application, we're looking for a GPA. Now, that's a kind of or equivalent professional experience. If you've been out of school as long as most of the people on this call, and it doesn't really matter what your GPA was when you were 23. But we need something, and we will and can augment that with, yeah, but I've been a registered planner for 25 years. I'm okay, right? And we agree with that. The research proposal is, again, not a research proposal. Don't Google research proposal and then write something like that. That's not what we're looking for. And this is why it's important, I think, to have a conversation. It's really about, this is the problem space that I'm in. This is what frustrates me. This is what I see as potential as a professional, and this is what I'd like to look at. That's what we're looking for. Some kind of portfolio of past work. Doesn't have to be It doesn't have to be, creative design work. It can be whatever it is that you do, just as a document of that, a CV, 2 letters of reference, and English. And then the deadline is May 31st, 2025. We have some flexibility in that because this is a really small program, and we kind of hand pick people, through the process. The deadline isn't that critical, but we would like to try to have our cohort sorted out in June so that we know what we're on about. So if you have any sort of technical questions, you can talk to Jen, reach out to her and to set up a meeting with me. I do pretty much meet with everybody, and I've met with some of you I see already, and it's nice to see you on the call today. And there's Jen's email in there. Is there got 3 minutes left? Troy, any last comments?
Not unless just to say it is worth it for me. I mean, I'm for it. It really has kind of changed the trajectory of what I'm attempting to do in kind of the next phase of my professional career, and I think it's done that for others as well before me, and probably some that are with me right now. So.
Thanks. Barry, any last thoughts?
Um,
do.
I think we've kind of covered everything. You've been hit with a lot of information. The biggest thing too is it's those conversations that John talked about are really important. We really try to make it a more personalized kind of experience in terms of your application process. And then once you get in, it's again, there's a lot of that kind of coaching and support working towards the end of the degree.
That's right. All right. So respectful of everybody's time, and with 2 minutes left, I think this is probably time to hop off. Amiri, I see that you've contacted. I think you just came on, right? So this has been recorded. Everybody can watch it again. Please reach out and contact me. And I just say to go back to the recycling and all the rest. I mean, I think what we found is that the people that come to us have a burning desire to make change, and they're frustrated because they're not able to implement it. It's either because of constraints within their practice, constraints within public perception. And what we're looking for is what's an entrepreneurial social enterprise, doesn't have to be for profit, but what's a way of rethinking this problem, rethinking the opportunity to make it actually have something to happen. And I think that Barry's comment about our planner to read, who's looking at accessibility, how do you make it something more than just a law that you have to follow in the building code?
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of that, a lot of things that we should be doing. Here's a way of making it something that's more plausible to do. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your day wherever in the world you are. Thanks a lot, and I hope to see you in a personal one-on-one call. Take care. Bye.